You've probably seen ads for or heard your friends talking about daily language learning apps like Duolingo or Babbel. And it makes sense. The world is becoming ever increasingly interconnected, and knowing a second language can be a competitive advantage in business, a fun fact about yourself and your personal life, or a fun hobby for traveling or lifelong learners. And I was no different, but I didn't have the quote-unquote excuse I needed to start learning a new language. Back in high school, I took Latin, hoping that one day it would come in handy in learning French or Spanish, but I never got around to that. In college, I didn't take any language classes, so the thought of actually sitting down and actually putting the work in to actually try and improve something about me really never crossed my mind. That is, until I was a few months away from visiting Europe for the first time. I took an international finance class that included an 8-day sojourn to London and Paris. I finally got the excuse I needed. So, I downloaded Duolingo, and I got to work. I'm currently at a streak of 601 days, but was just under a year into my journey with the app when I woke up delirious in a French train station after taking a red-eye rail ride. I lost the drowsiness and added a black and white striped sweater, and stepped out onto the streets of Paris. Oh, Paris. The city of love. Or lights, depending on who you ask. For reference, this trip occurred just about a week before the world would lock down, meaning the city and its attractions were less crowded, although still just as beautiful. The first sight was the Fountain St. Michael, followed by views of the still under construction Notre Dame Cathedral. Walks along the water and a stop in a shopping mall led to waiting for a cappuccino in a nice little cafe. And boy, did I enjoy lounging in Paris with some coffee. For the rest of the day, our group scaled the Eiffel Tower and took a ferry along the rivers of Paris. Most of the rest of the sights we saw were by bus, although we were still lucky enough to visit the Louvre and Versailles Palace. This is all to say, I had a very French experience in France, at least by tourist standards. While I was less fond of escargot than I had hoped, the crepes lived up to my expectations, as did the scenery and overall experience, despite how tired I was that first full, non-stop, hustling day. But what of the language? Well, there were surprisingly few opportunities to actually speak French in France. Like most Europeans, many French people learn English as a second language from their equivalent of grade school. The few times I tried whipping out my Duolingo-based knowledge, I was shut down almost immediately. Story number 1. Before entering Versailles Palace, I ate lunch alone in a small restaurant after having wandered to go find an ATM to withdraw some euros. I also wanted to see if I'd be able to get through ordering in a restaurant in French, one of the earliest skills taught by the lessons in Duolingo. Before starting, I told the waiter, "Pardon, je parle seulement un peu du français," meaning, sorry, I only speak a little French. He looked at me like I was wearing a beret backwards and on the wrong limb and said, "Yeah, we all speak English." Embarrassed, I proceeded to just read the menu in French and order a green salad in fear of needing to pronounce a much more difficult dish. Back in line waiting to enter Versailles Palace, the student in our group who spoke French said I was pronouncing what I had said fine. I chalked it up to some minor goof on my part. Story number 2. One lunch, I ended up eating in a strange French and Mexican fusion restaurant at a different shopping mall than we talked about before. With 2 others, I was pointing out some basic words I recognized from the menu. Things like beef, chicken, cheese, and other very common, recognizable burrito and taco ingredients. We eventually order, although a little unsure about the correctness of each item. Upon paying, the cashier goes into rapid-fire French, speaking her dialect as if I were a native. I apologize and again mention I only speak a little French. She asks, "Vous me comprenez?" Do you understand me? I motion and say, "Un petit." A little. After some back and forth, we're thankfully able to translate enough to make it through the process unscathed. I swear I heard her snickering in the back of the kitchen as we grabbed our food and seated ourselves. Story number 3. While waiting to be seated at a different restaurant, the hostess asks our group, "Manger ou boire?" I turned and asked, "Are we eating or just drinking?" Not knowing how to say both, I used the classic, "Oui, manger et boire." Yes, eating and drinking. And we were seated. The place was called something like Papa Louis, and eventually Papa Louis himself came to ask us how our meals were. Not catching or understanding entirely what I said, I just hit him with a "Très bon," very good, and that was that. Story number 4. In line for crepes, I stood translating a couple different things off the menu to the other people in my group, before noticing the English translation was just on the other side of the board. A couple behind me asked if I knew French, and I said, "No, but I've been learning for a while on Duolingo in preparation for this trip." I also mentioned I wasn't having much luck actually using my knowledge of French in the country. One of them said something to me along the lines of, "Well, thank you for trying." And I just replied with a "Merci beaucoup." thank you very much. They complimented me on my pronunciation. That was my biggest win as a novice trying to speak French in France. Now, was I embarrassed on this trip? Not really. Enough people spoke English, and I knew enough French to get by in the one situation in which it was required. However, I think we can all strive to do a little better in the things we say we're going to do, whether that's learning a language or anything else. So, here are 5 tips for learning proficiently and productively, or at least tips for picking up a new language on Duolingo. Number 1, practice, practice, practice. While there is some point along the retention curve in which you will no longer hold on to new information, just getting yourself to put a little bit of work in is much better than doing nothing. Practicing, and in different ways, will help you retain any new knowledge. Number 2, don't be upset with your progress. A daily commitment to anything can be tough, but sticking to it, even if it's just a bit each day, builds up a strong foundation over time and eventually a strong understanding. This goes in line with number 3, setting goals. Saying, I want to learn French, well, that's pretty broad. Setting a concrete, specific goal, or a bunch of small ones along the way, will help you continuously make incremental progress. For me, I get 1 crown in Duolingo each day, that is, completing 6 lessons to finish 1 level every day. Number 4, switch it up. Now, I've only ever used Duolingo, but switching up the ways in which you engage with something will activate different parts of your brain and help you learn more cohesively. For example, I rewatched Amazon Prime's Patriot, which includes many scenes of spoken French. Hearing actual spoken conversation is much different than how apps present learning. Learning in a way which more closely reflects the reality of the situation in which you need to use that knowledge will build it up practically in your mind. And of course, learning practically will also help you whenever you need to actually use the skill that you're learning. Number 5, schedule it into your day. Now with Duolingo, I do my lessons whenever I get the chance. However, setting a specific time when it is time for you to learn, get creative, or be productive will train your brain to expect to do that same task at the same time every day. It'll prime you to pick things up faster or just simply be in the mood to get productive, creative, what have you. It's the same reason why it's almost harder to not go to the gym or work out once you've been in the habit for a while. It's also the other reason you get tired and want the extra cup of coffee around the same time every day. So, in conclusion, I have really enjoyed my time using Duolingo. And I'll keep at it for the foreseeable future, until I've gotten every possible crown within the app. In the meantime, I'll try to watch some French film and television to get a better grip on real spoken French. I hope this video has helped you discover something about getting productive or being more proficient, or about the importance of the daily hustle for long-term success. Remember, just a little bit every now and again adds up to a lot over time, especially in comparison to someone who has never started at all. Merci beaucoup et au revoir. So please like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you're interested in seeing what other kind of tips I'm going to come up with, other ways you can get productive, make money, live the life you want, whatever it is. Ring that bell to be notified when that content comes out. Click the video coming up soon. New videos will hopefully be coming out every Friday. And please, add some music, productivity, or whatever else it is that you love to your day.
Add some music, just add some music to your day.